Hello, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. We came, we conquered. North London is definitely red. You are watching Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. We're looking back at the North London derby and our trip to Europe and later on into City. Up the Arsenal.
Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is your Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Enjoy the show.
Hello, boys. How's the heads? You know what? I'm really surprised. I have a voice. It's a little bit raspy. I have a voice. I left you guys afterwards. I think, Dan, you headed back down into the Blackstock and partied late into the night. But I had to come home. I had some stuff to do at home. I fell asleep on the sofa about 7:30. And I had about 10 hours sleep. So I woke up feeling pretty well today. But as the day's gone along, I must admit, I have faded. Trevor, you rang me earlier. You said,
we're here to talk about the North London derby, not your boring home life. Now get on with it.
Can you move your microphone to you, by the way?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Here we go.
Yeah.
I was actually leaning forward into the microphone then, and it weren't there.
I know. Trevor, you said you were feeling shattered and ran out of steam today as well. It's a long day. 12 kilometres we walked.
Yeah. I don't know what went on, because I didn't drink an exceptionally large amount of beer, although congratulations, Tottenham. The beer in your visitors section yesterday was by far the worst I have ever tasted in a football ground in my life. It was undrinkable, the lager. I don't know what you've mixed in with it, but it weren't tasting like lager. So, yeah, but I was just good. We had that long walk back to Tottenham Hale, didn't we? And I just thought, I just can't do it anymore. I'm just going home. So I came home and had a long sleep like you, Fergus, and here we are, ready to talk about one of the greatest North London derby wins I've witnessed under the circumstances.
It's just part of the course. That's what we do, isn't it? 3-point line. That's what we do. I heard what you said there, Dan. You said they put their salty tears in their lager. Is that what you reckon?
Or lasagna. Could be lasagna, mate.
No. We'd have the shits if we had the lasagna, and I don't have the shits.
All I'm saying was that inchy cider I had was lovely. Don't know what you're all moaning about. Fantastic day, fantastic win. Not a single bit of it would I change. Everything was fantastic, and even them crying about things since then has just continued my fantastic day.
Yeah, and we had great company. There was myself, Ben, Dan, Hannah, Joe, Lyle, and Trev, and loads of others. But that was the core of who were together. There was Kieran, and it was just really, really good. Alex, you sat in a bar in Copenhagen, but you had company, didn't you?
I did. I had company by your nephew, who's staying in Copenhagen for a few months. So that was good fun meeting up with him and watching the game with him.
Yeah, Connor, my nephew, he's over from America for a few months. I don't know how long he's staying over there, but he's over in London, hopefully for the Southampton game, if we can get him tickets. Listen, let's look at this game then. So we conquered Mikel Arteta's army over land and sea and Tottenham. We don't just do seas, we do swamps as well. We started a Premier League game without Declan Rice and Odegaard for the first time since the England internationals arrived at the stadium. I just realised. What did we make of the lineup then, Trevor? There was so much talk about it, and we heard like Spurs fans were getting all a bit excited and a bit chirpy that they thought we had no midfield, and we talked about it. Do we put Zinni in the midfield, but he ended up being injured? Do we put Havertz? All the different formations. Arteta knew, didn't he?
Of course he knew. Listen, right, it was any team would miss players of the calibre of Rice and Odegaard. Some of the best players in the world were missing from the Arsenal lineup. But I'm giving full credit for yesterday to Mikel Arteta. I am. I thought it was absolute tactical masterclass. An absolute tactical masterclass. I know I said that twice, but it needed saying twice. He used what he had, right, and he played the best game we possibly could with the players available. Instead of pressing high, we pressed high at times, but when we needed to, we moved the press a bit deeper. I owe you an apology for that, really, Fergus, because you mentioned about dropping deeper last week, and I wasn't very happy about it, but I take that back, and I'm very sorry. We actually pressed high, we pressed deep. We didn't press at all when we didn't need to. You know, we just actually played the game by the minute, and I'm so proud of all them players, and in particular Mikel Arteta. Thought it was superb yesterday.
Dan, what was your thoughts on the lineup? The lineup, as we know, was Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Timber. We'll talk about Timber later as well. Partey and Jorginho in midfield, Trossard, Saka, Martinelli, and Havertz. Trossard played the Odegaard position, and I think he done fantastic, didn't he?
Yeah, to be honest, that was the lineup I pretty much said, other than I would have probably started Sterling over Martinelli. But again, I think bringing him in, you're not going to bring a player straight in and put him in the lineup. I think he stuck with his players that you had and hopefully give him a bit of confidence. But Trossard, yeah, was fantastic in that role. And it might be a question more for Alex, because obviously he watched it on the TV. But I still, to this minute, can't decide who we actually had playing up top, because Trossard and Havertz just interlinked, especially on the press, that they pressed as a two with a two behind. And it was near enough like a box to sit on their box. And the way we pressed them, let them have it in certain areas, but we pressed them in the right area. And I think you can make an argument for either of Havertz or Trossard being the striker in that game.
Alex, clearly that cider isn't strong enough in the Tottenham Stadium, because he noticed that much. But is he right?
Yeah, I think he is right. I think they both played the kind of 10 role. And they did like switch and interchange positions. Sometimes Trossard would be on the right side, sometimes he'd be on the left side. And I think it worked pretty well. And like Dan said, we sort of pressed them high when they were building up from the back, and then if they managed to play through our press, we'd sit back and drop deep. And I think that was just the right way to do it, because we saw how difficult they had breaking down our low block, and we've seen it multiple times. With Tottenham, they really struggle when teams sit deep, and they haven't got that breakthrough. I mean, they peppered us with crosses, and yeah, it was just easy for Saliba and Gabriel. So our tactics were on point.
Look, the Spurs come out and they started quite briskly early on. In the 8th minute, David Raya was forced to make a couple of great saves again, and really kept us in the game that early on. He pushed away. The first one was from Kulusevski, and then there was he put this sort of cross thing in from long range that went round the post. Trevor, were you? It's almost pointless asking you. I'm not going to get a sensible answer. Were you worried in that 10, 15 minutes the way Spurs were pressing?
Why would you not get a sensible answer? I knew that you were going to ask this. Listen, I knew that you were going to ask this question, right? Because we did come under a bit of pressure in the first 10, 15, even 20 minutes, didn't we? But it's what happens in North London derbies. We're the away team in a North London derby, playing against a team at home. And we were going to come under pressure, and it's how you handle that pressure. And I thought that it's not the first time or the last time. It's not the last time we're going to talk about it tonight. But our back five was superb in the whole game. But in the first, it actually looked like they were enjoying defending. It looked like a bit of a practice game. It looked like a bit of a practice game at times, just doing their drills and just nullifying Tottenham. And when they did get a shot in, Raya deserves a special mention, right? Because as we all know, me and Dan used to have long chats about Raya and Ramsdale, and I used to say, you know, why did Ramsdale have to be dropped? And now we're seeing why, because Ramsdale this season in particular, game after game, he's had some work to do, and he's done it superbly. And I thought yesterday was a bit of a goalkeeping masterclass, not so much for the things that he shone doing, like the good saves, but his work, just ordinary work, catching the ball, looking to distribute. It was just absolutely superb. And I can absolutely see why he's developed into our number one. Having said that, just briefly, just before we move on, Ferg, staying on the goalkeeper situation and just going back to Ramsdale. Ramsdale's gone now, right? But I've seen him start to get a few pelters on social media, right, Ramsdale? And I just want to say my piece that That's not deserved at all. Not deserved at all. People need to remember what a state we were in when Ramsdale first joined us. Ramsdale was massively part of the team and the new players that lifted our
Bringing
fans,
the fans on board, Trevor.
lifted our fans, lifted our players, lifted our club overall, right? And he done a fantastic job. And he doesn't deserve pelters, Ramsdale, but absolutely, I didn't realise it. Dan realised it. Credit where it's due. Raya has developed into a very special goalkeeper. I think as long as he keeps his confidence up and keeps doing what he's doing, he's an integral part of our whole system. I nearly said team, but it's not a team. It's a system they play, and Raya is a massive cog in that system. Very proud of his game yesterday.
Well, I like to pick on everything that you say, Trev, and there's something you said there I need to pick on because you refer to us as a back five, and I think we need to move beyond just referring to us as a back five. You could argue a back six with Partey being in there as an integral part.
You've been saying.
Listen, I'm just going to knock you off the podcast in a minute. Dan, you can go. Tonight's not the night for being
you've been saying back six, but Partey's not always available, and
No, but he's a key part of it, and I think
right.
Well, you don't know until they're gone.
That's not a back part of a back five. That is a team in positions. If you look at the team when it lines up, we've got 4 defenders, no goalkeeper. That's the back five. Partey is a defensive midfielder that becomes part of that when needed. So get on your horse and ride off.
Without him, he's an integral part of that defence. And I tell you what, that defensive record is not as good when he's not playing.
He's a defensive midfielder. I think more about Partey than anybody. But he's a defensive midfielder that plays there when drops when needed. I didn't see him dropping into the back four yesterday. I see him picking up the ball just in front of the back four.
Well, he wasn't. Jorginho was playing that six role, and Partey was playing slightly more advanced to that. Dan, were you worried at the beginning with Spurs pressure? The Spurs supporters it's the only time they were noisy in the first 10 minutes, and for the rest of it, I watched back some of it last night on TV, and the atmosphere was really flat. And from our side as well, in that first half, was a bit flat.
Yeah. Well, firstly on the atmosphere, from their side, it didn't feel like a derby from their side. I think it was a terrible atmosphere from Spurs fans, but I wasn't worried in all fairness, and I think we got it spot on. But I think we just back ourselves now as a team to say we are so good defensively. This is the best defensive unit we've had since '98, and we can go to any ground and say we can shut up shop and back ourselves to get a clean sheet. And then we back ourselves at the other end to say we've got enough quality to somehow get a goal, nick a goal, do something to win the game. And I just never for 1 second felt like we were going to lose that game. I've been saying throughout the whole game that I felt like a set piece is where we were going to score. And we was going to get a set piece and score from that. But never felt like they were going to score. We had one moment where we lost the ball in our own third and they did nothing with it. And you compare the two teams, quality in the final third from us to them, we're on a completely different level. Quality defending their own box from us to them, we're on a completely different level. And yes, they can be pretty in between. Yes, they can dominate that when they're at home. You've got to be clinical in both boxes, and in both boxes, we're a much, much better side than them.
Alex, David Raya kept us in that game for the first 10 minutes or so. We then pushed on, and 17 and 18 minutes, we had a couple of chances. There was a graphic that you shared with me. Do you want to talk through it?
Yeah, that was just the boys were speaking about the positions before. So here we can see the average positions of the players in the game. So you can see Partey actually played quite far back. He's almost next to Gabriel, with Saliba being a bit more further up the field. And then you can see the Havertz and Trossard playing close together as the front two.
Cool. Alex, that's near enough like a back six, mate, isn't it?
Back six.
Trevor,
yeah.
I think the young ones are ganging up on us. You know that. I think that's what's happening here.
There'll be a time.
I don't like to agree with that, but he's pretty right on this one. It was kind of like a back six yesterday because we did sit quite deep with Partey, and I think Partey had one of his best games off the ball yesterday against Spurs. Usually we praise him for his on-ball abilities and the way he breaks lines, but I think yesterday it was one of his best games off the ball and defending.
Listen, 17 minutes we fought back with it. 2 chances in 90 seconds. First, Kai Havertz came in with he headed it across, and Vicario kept it out, and it was lucky not to creep in. I don't have the image, but it came off Romario's arm. Anybody, we wouldn't have seen it in the ground, but anybody think it was a handball? I've seen the stills and the replay afterwards.
Fergus, I don't know what you're talking about, mate.
I think it would have been a harsh one. It did. I mean, the goalkeeper saved it, and then it bounced off Romero's arm. So, I think if that would have gone against us, I'd be pretty livid. So, I think that was fair enough not to give it.
Okay, the next opportunity was Trossard released Martinelli through down on the left, and he charged towards the box. And Martinelli does what Martinelli does really well. He runs that wing and he runs at people, but Saka tracked his run as well in the middle, and he should have crossed it. Listen, I don't think I was talking to somebody today or yesterday about Martinelli, and he looks like a guy who just is desperate to get a goal, to get the monkey off his back sort of thing, and he's not making maybe the best decision when he needs to make that decision. The best decision for him to make 18 minutes in was cross the ball to Saka. Trevor, why didn't he cross the ball to Saka?
I don't know. We'd have to ask him that, but I would assume it's because he's not scored in or assisted in 13 games, and he saw the goal and wanted to have a shot at goal. What disappointed me was the fact that Vicario stopped it, but he didn't really make him make a save. It was easy, wasn't it? He just caught it, more than saved it. So he should have crossed it for Saka. He'd have been credited with the assist, which would be a lot better return than he's had recently. But he didn't. He shot a goal, and it was very feeble effort, wasn't it? I'm struggling to have a pop at Martinelli, but I think that what's going to happen soon is that we're going to find Martinelli sitting on the bench a little bit more often this season. I really do.
Yeah, I think he needs an arm around his shoulder, because his head doesn't seem in the game, does it, Trev?
Do you know what, Ferg? I'm not sure.
That's probably harsh. That's harsh.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm not going to have a go at anyone about Martinelli, because you can see why people are beginning to just question him a little bit. But his effort levels are right up there. His energy levels are right up there. Hopefully, maybe he's just not getting the rub of the green, as we say, and that will change soon, and very soon, because we need Martinelli banging in 12 or 14 goals a season, don't we? Because that means we win many more games. But the thing is, nowadays, if Arteta gets fed up with him, we've got plenty to come in and take his place, haven't we? While he sits on the bench, it's not as if we're bringing in an inexperienced youngster or someone that we may think is not quite up to the scratch. The people that are going to come in for him are damn fine players, and they're not going to lower the standard whatsoever. So, be interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, that first half fizzled out more or less, and the busiest man in that first half was Gerard Gillette. Is that Gillet? I don't know how to pronounce it. He dished out 7 yellow cards, which is the joint most cards ever shown, yellow cards shown in 45 minutes of a Premier League game. One in particular was the card for Timber, where people are calling for red cards. People are talking about Curtis Jones and Basuma last season at the same stadium. He got a red card for it. Alex, I'm going to talk to you about this. I have got the video, so I'll try and talk over it. We'll try and make sure it gets rid of it before YouTube picks us up, because I picked us up on the North London Forever last week.
Yeah, I think initially I thought, he could be in trouble here, because it looked like initially that he got his foot on the ball, and then his foot slow motion. He never really goes over the ball. Really, he gets to the ball, and then Porro goes into Timber actually. So, I think it was a harsh yellow. You could argue it shouldn't have been a foul. And then it all kicked off afterwards, and luckily, Vicario got a yellow as well. So, kind of evened it out. I think overall, actually, I think the ref did okay in the game. That was probably the biggest mistake in the game, that he showed Timber a yellow there. I think overall he actually did okay. I think Saliba's actually shouldn't have been a yellow as well. I think it was a bit harsh. He got a yellow for time wasting, when Tottenham did the exact same a minute before that, and they didn't get a yellow. So again, we see the consistency in regards to the time wasting yellow cards. But I think after that, and then the second half, I think he did okay. The referee.
Ferg,
Dan,
listen.
go on.
Ferg, listen, just before you go to Dan, because I want to include Dan in this, I want to ask you a question, right? Because when I look at that, I've looked it back a few times now. When I finish, just play that video again. When by the time Vicario's foot goes near the ball, I think that Timber is actually pulling his. It just looks like at that very moment, if when Porro's foot runs over the ball, he's actually pulling his foot away a bit. You know, he's lifting his foot a bit. I mean, he may have caught him and he may have felt it, but he weren't as injured as
He made a meal of it. He
Oh,
really made a meal of it. Yeah.
as I put on social media today, he went into prime cheat mode, and he didn't get away with it. I don't think it was even a yellow card, to be honest. But what was funny, you just mentioned, was that after Saliba got that booking, every time a free kick was given, Saliba was sprinting away from the ball. He didn't want to be anywhere near the ball. He thought, I'm not getting booked again. Sorry, I'll cut you off with Dan now.
No, it's fine. It's fine because, to be honest, I was going to show it again. Dan, I don't think the yellow card was necessarily for that. I think it was for the afterwards with Vicario and him, where he grabbed him by the scruff of the
Could
neck.
have been. Yeah, could have been.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't actually think he got a yellow for that. I think it was just he gave a yellow to both him and Vicario for their coming together at the end. In all fairness, I don't think that's even a foul. And this is with no tinted glasses at all. You can say full cheat mode. I think he went full Tom Daly mode personally and got a 10.0. But you look at the way Timbers approached that ball, he never goes over the ball. You can't compare it to Curtis Jones and Basuma's where they go over the ball and studs up into the player. His studs are never up. He hits the ball and his foot bounces. And at the point it bounces, he then puts the outside of his foot down to protect and not show his studs, protecting the ball. The only way as a player in that position you put your foot slightly over the ball to protect and keep the player away from the ball. He never goes studs up into the player. The player is coming towards another player, and at the point you've got the ball and they're in control of the ball, it's nothing more than a coming together from two footballers, and that happens in a game. It's not a non-contact sport. It happens. And the players just hit the ground and hit the deck and try to cry and roll around. Honestly, never a foul.
Never a foul. Look, the halftime came, and because the beer was so bad on that upper deck, I decided to go out and do my thing for research for other away fans, and I tried the beer at halftime on the lower area, and it was better, Trevor. It was still poor, but it was better. It was drinkable at least. So that was a good bit of research done for me for the rest of mankind and footballing fans.
There was something mixed in with that beer. It didn't taste.
It was rotten. It was rotten for me to switch.
Yeah,
for me to switch and pay £7 for a can of Guinness.
It was awful.
Yeah,
it was awful.
Listen, the Spurs came back out and they tried, as we thought they would, because I was with Lyle and Joe, and we were saying that Spurs are going to come out strong. They're going to come at us, and we just need to keep our heads and keep our focus for the first 10 minutes, which we did, and we weathered the it was never a storm, and because where I was with Joe and Lyle, Joe and Lyle at the back of the goal, when we were attacking, when Spurs were attacking our goal, which was at the far end, it felt like when they were near the halfway line and we were almost on the penalty spot from just the level that we were at. But I switched to look at the screens up top, and you could see how far they were. And once they got that, 20, 25-yard line, halfway between the halfway line and the 18-yard box, it just seemed like there was a wall. The defence was just unreal. There was no way they were getting through there. And we just weathered it. And then 64 minutes, a swift cross from Saka from a corner, and another set piece, as you said, Dan. But you know what the interesting thing was? Just before that, Saka had put the ball into the 6-yard box, or put a cross up, and he ran out. And just as the ball went out for the corner, he just looked, and he looked at the Arsenal fans at the time, and he just smiled. I think he knew that they had the upper hand, and I think he knew that there was a goal coming from that cross. I have got some footage. This footage doesn't belong to Sky. This belongs to somebody in a Tottenham box. So let's look without the sound. Oh, then we can have the sound. Here's the goal. just leaps like a salmon, Dan. He leaps like a salmon.
Replay it, Ferg.
Okay, I'm going to replay it, and then you can talk through it. Go on.
I don't want to talk. I just want to see it again. It's wonderful.
Okay, here it goes again without the sound. So watch him though. Look at the leap and the power behind Gabriel on there. Oh, unreal. Dan leaps like a salmon.
Well, I don't know if you've got the other one I sent you, Ferg, with the scores along the top. I don't know if you can try and get that one up because
I will while you talk.
My personal favourite. But what makes this even better is I've had today so many Spurs fans salty tears saying it was a foul. I'm sorry, if that's a foul, no corner will ever be scored. There is nothing about that is a foul. It's jostling for possession in the box and a great leap from Gabriel. Great ball in that puts it on the sixpence exactly where it needs to be. And it's just 11 players on that pitch carrying out instructions to a T because they're in the right places to block the right players, to block the keeper, to block the runs, carrying out their instructions to be able to push the guy away and get space. And then an easy header and an easy goal. And we know we've got it in us. We are now great at set pieces and also great at defending them. And we've gone up against a team which I think the stats were 25% of their goals they've conceded were from set pieces. And considering they concede 6-year goals a season, that's like 15 goals. But yeah, this one, just look at the scores along the top. This is my personal favourite. So here we go. The little cannon comes out.
That's absolutely priceless, isn't it? It's priceless. Was that actually live TV footage?
We have it one more time, Ferg. I just want to see that little. I just want to see him get shot.
Please bear in mind these are animated pigeons. They're not real pigeons. There was no pigeons shot in the making of this clip. And no beach balls were burst either. There we go. Bang, goal.
It is a thing of beauty, that is. Well, it is. That's the best reaction to a goal I've seen on the scoreline. But honestly, and I don't know about you guys, after that goal went in, I didn't even realise what time of the match it was, but I don't really remember what happened afterwards because all I can hear in my head is that Gabriel song. And this is probably the loudest I've heard that song sung in the stadium over and over again. Brilliant, brilliant time.
Well, I was down the front, and I work out. I work to get a body like this, and somebody grabbed my pec. Let's call it that way, and then nearly ripped it off my body. I got bruises all over.
I'm calling you a tip, by the way.
Yeah, I got bruises here, cuts down here. It was limbs everywhere. Alex, I did get your video with it. It's really grainy. You can't really see it when you put it on the big screen. So, but it is just carnage. Trevor, what was it like where you were? You were with Coat Man, so you must have been protected. He must have covered you with his superpowers of his coat.
Yeah, I was next to him. What a lovely fella he is, by the way. And the reason I was next to him was because a mate of mine and a great friend of this show, Mark Millen, just swapped his ticket with me, and I ended up down in row 1. So thank you, Mark. And Ellis, lovely. Ellis is his daughter. She was at her first North London derby yesterday. It was a brilliant day for her. So thanks, Mark, and thanks, Ellis. Nice to see you yesterday. And if you want to do it again, feel free. I'll give you another mention. But do you know what? When that, I've spoken, how many times have I said about it on this podcast about Postecoglou not learning from set pieces, right? Not learning from set pieces. And there's absolutely Arteta and his set piece coaching team have worked on it. They must have worked on it for weeks. If Tottenham are going to do their normal thing and defend at the front post, we'll go to the back post. You go here, you go there, you go here, you go there. And as Dan just said, it worked absolutely perfectly. It worked absolutely perfectly. And it wasn't a free header, but Gabriel had a matchup that meant he was never not going to score. I stood there when I was about 2 yards from Saka when he took that corner, and you could see the Arsenal players at the back post, and there was about 6 Arsenal players and 2 Spurs players in there, and all the rest of the Spurs players were in front. So the Arsenal players are looking at the Spurs players, and they know exactly where to go. They've all gone to their spots, and it was a fantastically worked goal, right? A fantastically worked goal. And as it proved, Postecoglou hasn't learned. You know, And long may it continue, mate. It was brilliant, gobsmacking goal. And as Dan said, after the goal, I was the opposite. I had the clock in my face, and I'm watching it, thinking, please don't let them get a lucky last minute or last 5 minutes equaliser, because it would have been lucky. It would have been lucky if they'd have got an equaliser, because we said right at the start of this, our defence were playing for fun. They were enjoying it. They were enjoying defending the Arsenal side, and it was a pleasure to watch. It's just wonderful. Bring on Thursday, and then bring on next week.
On that point about the scoreboard, and Dan, you can come back in after that. On that point about the scoreboard is like this beautiful sight, 1-0 to the Arsenal. And that's all you see. And you see a live run of the game, which is great when it's at the other end. But when cards were being dished out left, right, and centre, we didn't know what players were getting carded, none of the decisions, at least at the Emirates, whilst they tried to do at one point at the first game of the season, show some of the game playing live. You just haven't got a clue what's going on with the game, do you, really, Dan?
Yeah, I did think at one point it's quite hard to keep track of who had been booked, especially with the amount of alcohol we had. It would have been nice to have had a little reminder. But I just wanted to come back to something about Trev with the coat guy, because what I love about this club is that opposites attract. And you've got one guy who keeps his coat on, and you've got another guy that can't keep his top on.
And you know what's really funny, Dan? Afterwards, we're waiting to go back. We'll stick together. We'll all walk together and everything else. Lyle and everybody's ready to go, and I come. No, we're waiting, Trev. I rang Trev. The phone signal works in that stadium as well, which is really, really unusual in comparison to the Emirates. I rang Trev, and he goes, "Hang on, yeah. Oh, I'm down row 1. I'm just getting my photo taken. Hang on. Oh, I've met such and such a photographer. Oh, yeah, and I've got to have a beer with him in Italy. Yeah, I'll be up in a minute." He's just a tart, isn't he?
That was. I'm not a tart at all.
You are.
That Justin Setterfield bloke, the bloke that wanted to take the pictures of me. Top man. And he come up to me after the game and said, he's in. Where is he?
Can I see your tats?
He's in Bologna, I think, or Bologna on Wednesday. I'm just ignoring you, Fergus, because you're talking out your fat ass again. But he's in Bologna on Wednesday, and then he's coming to Bergamo on Thursday, Dan, and he wants to know if we'd fancy meeting up for a beer. And he's a lovely bloke, so I said I'd message him and let him know how we get on.
But let's hope the weather's good for you, because we know what that picture is going to look like.
Yeah.
Alex, let's talk about the substitutions. There were 2 substitutions of note, which was Raheem Sterling came on for his debut, had a couple of cameo opportunities, and there was Nathan Nwaneri as well, who came on and had his first taste of a North London derby. How did you think they both got on? Let's start with Sterling first of all.
I mean, they came on and they had to defend a 1-0 lead, so I think that they did what they had to do, and I think Nwaneri, when you take into consideration his age and the occasion, I think he was very cool, calm, and collected. Every time he got the ball, his first touch was amazing. I think he did all the right things, and just like a final note on the corners and our goal, it was just so funny because I saw a video of some Spurs fans in the stands, and they were like turning their back to the field whenever we had a corner. They were so scared. It's like a penalty for them whenever we get a corner.
Well, we scored 23 goals from set pieces.
Yeah,
I was listening to Hawksby and Jacobs on Talk Sport, and I can't remember which one. I think it's Jacobs is the one who's a Spurs fan. He was spitting feathers, and he says they're just like Stoke, just set piece, just like Stoke. And I was just cracking up. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care how we won that game. I don't mind if we win every North London derby by scoring set pieces. I don't give a damn. And yeah, it was funny with the Saka thing as well. Every time he was going to take a corner, he strolled, he walked very slowly, smiling to the Tottenham fans. He was pissing them off as well.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant. No, I think Sterling and Nwaneri had an okay cameo. They didn't really get the chance to show that much going forward, but they defended well, did well when we got the ball, and I'm sure we're going to see much more of both of them in the coming games because we've got a busy schedule, haven't we?
We have. Dan, Sterling, for me, I thought he had two real opportunities. One, he slightly, the ball got away from him. The second one in particular, where he looked like he was nearly one-on-one with Vicario, and he just seemed to, he looked like a kid who was like his first day at school and who was trying to really impress the headmaster, and he just like overplayed his cards, don't you think?
I mean, to be honest, those, as I said, those last 15, 20 minutes, I tell you, if you want to deal with your nerves away in a North London derby of the clock ticking down, just spend it looking at the Spurs fans towards the end of the game. That'll take your mind off it. So my actual memories of the last bit of that game was probably not the greatest. I'm going to be rewatching it after, so I'll give you a better
I,
opinion on it, guys.
I've got some footage. There's a corporate section, and I've got a client of mine. There's a corporate section just behind the away fans, and I'm sure it's you on here. You were close to getting ejected, weren't you?
I might have celebrated a little bit lively.
A little bit.
Yeah, there was a guy behind me who was just, having a nice casual chat with me throughout the game, and decided to climb slightly up on the glass and celebrate in front of them with the celebration like that. And I tell you what, it felt bloody amazing.
Yeah.
But facing the wrong way. And,
A 3-year football betting order later.
celebration police don't like that though.
Oh, they don't do they not? Let's have a look.
Very sorry, shouldn't have done that.
Ah, red card. Listen, if you want his details, DM me. I'll give you his address and know exactly where he lives if you need to issue the ticket.
Do you know what? Craig? That is wonderful because normally he's on my back, that celebration. Right. And it's wonderful to be out of the limelight for once, It's amazing to be out of the limelight. Mate, long may it carry on, Dan. You're the man. Carry on. Ferg, listen, right?
Hang on, just before while I think about it, because nobody really knows the rules of the celebration, please, because he just issues these warnings left, right, and centre. If he's up to the challenge in the next international break, see if he wants to come on and explain the rules of engagement that we're allowed to celebrate. There we go. Challenge is out there.
He's listening to you now, mate. He's on here commenting, and the thing is, like all coppers, he makes the rules up as he goes along. I'll put me foot in
a bit like Dan's. Dan's league thing, yeah.
He's going to be at me again now, but mate, you're not going to move. Are you going to move on from Nwaneri and Sterling yet?
No.
Oh, lovely. I think it was a very important part of the game when they came on 10 minutes to go, and like Dan said, and Alex said, I thought Nwaneri came on and he was absolutely superb, absolutely superb. The fact that he's been playing our game style for years because every team at the Arsenal from any age group is asked to play the same way. So they're used to playing in that system, that formation, however you want to put it. And for a young kid like that, Harold, he's just 17, and he's 17. Yeah. For a young lad like that to come on and in them pressure situations, surrounded by Tottenham players, to keep the ball at his feet and not panic and find a pass instead of hoofing it, says so much about the boy. I was really, really pleased with him and proud of him. And as for Sterling, do you know what? I thought that Sterling may have been a bit nervous and just tried too hard. I really did think that Sterling might have tried too hard. There was a time. Well, I've not watched it back properly, but there was a time when he should have got a shot off, wasn't there? When he dallied too long and got the ball took off his feet, and there was another time he ran with it and it was took off him. But yeah, I think that the fact that we spoke about it again earlier, I keep saying this, but the fact that we bring on these substitutes and it doesn't make us worse, right? It keeps our levels is the most important part of our improvement of our process. We can now fill the spaces comfortably. Wonderful. I'm so happy. I'm so happy with. Well, I'm not bouncing tonight because I'm absolutely bloody knackered for some reason. But I'm so proud of that team yesterday and the fans. I thought the fans were amazing. Just not the beer. Just not the beer. It was crap.
The beer was awful. What did you make of the atmosphere? Because I was talking to Lyle, and I said it to you in the first half that the atmosphere felt a little bit flatter. And even before the game in the concourse area, it's been louder. It's been more raucous. It just, I said to Lyle about a 6 out of 10 for an atmosphere. And he went, no, it's 4 out of 10 because as a derby game, both sides, including our own, should have been more fierce and louder. I don't know. What did you think?
Do you know what, mate? Whether it was because I was right down the front or not, I absolutely didn't feel that. I thought that the Arsenal fans were brilliant from minute to 1 to minute 95 because we had 5 minutes of extra time. But then I was right at the front, so I'm hearing it all coming from behind me, and my perspective may have been different.
Yeah,
But
it depends on who you got around you when you're there. Dan, you were further back. Did you?
Listen, though, I just want to go one more mention of that beer.
Yeah.
I reckon if to imagine how bad that beer was, I reckon it might have been drained out of Fergus's bag first, right, and put straight behind the counter, right, for selling
Right,
on.
moving.
It was that rank, right? It smelt rank, it tasted rank, and it, strangely enough, it looked like piss.
Well, that's a good topic to go on to, Fergus, because you had 4 pints of Guinness go in you. You had a comment earlier about how it makes you feel afterwards.
It's about 16 meters of tar afterwards. Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving swiftly on. Look, we've won 6 consecutive Premier League away games for the first time since March.
Can I answer my question?
1 second is when we won 8 in a row under Wenger. Yes, because you took it somewhere else. So yeah, go on. Answer the question on the atmosphere.
I'm going to take it back and hope that your tar-like substance doesn't clog up your bag. But atmosphere at the back, I actually thought it was good at the back. I had no issues with the atmosphere of the away fans. Personally, I thought it was great. I mean, sometimes you struggle to get heard when you go to their ground because of the way the acoustics and bits are set up in there, and the music and bits that they play over speakers and little trumpet guys that stand on top of the roof. So
how embarrassing!
Yeah, well, what they are, chicken on the beach ball. They are embarrassing. Small little club, and then that's what they have to do to try and get them.
Sorry, just diverting off that. I meant to say it earlier. You talk about the guy with the trumpet, which is trying to get the North London Forever sort of atmosphere going, which was awful. Then they come along and said, and now we're going to talk about the teams. Here's the visiting side. Arsenal, we got Real Sleeping, and for the Tottenham Hotspur, we got Victoria. And it was just like, really? It was so OTT trying to build an atmosphere. It was just all embarrassing. Sorry, I digress.
I think most clubs do something similar to that, but it's just more cringy when them not do it, because they are cringe, aren't they? They're just like a bunch of inbreds and horrible fan base. And I always have a feeling where when you hear Spurs fan, you think twat. I think like when you're born as a bad person, they go right Spurs, and you're assigned Spurs when you're born like an idiot. And I've only met 2 Spurs fans in my life that I would say I actually ever got on with, and I think it's just a characteristic that you're assigned Spurs from birth when you're going to grow up to be a complete idiot.
So we've got a Ben Stokes lookalike now on here. We've had O'Hara on, and he'll feature later. But Gary. I was just going to say Gary's got a really good point.
I didn't know if you wanted to answer it now, mate, or star it. Yeah.
No. It's a really good point. We did discuss Timber. We talked about Timber and the yellow card, but how powerful Timber was, and how good. This is the player that we were all promised last year that we didn't get because of that ACL. Alex, come into us. Sorry, should I say? Ben, come back to us on Timber. Come on, Ben.
To be honest, I'll take Ben Stokes.
No, I'm talking to Ben Stokes.
Yeah, well, I'll take Ben Stokes because it's normally Perry Groves. So,
you're Ben Stokes? Oh, I don't know. I don't know cricket, so yeah. I was asking Alex.
It was Dan.
All right. Okay.
I'm assuming it might be something to do with the Moroccan sunset hair colour that I've got. So, but never mind. I'll be mistaken for that. I'll sign autographs for £5 an autograph if anyone wants one.
Right, give your opinion on Timber, and then I want Alex to talk about him as well because we haven't spoken to Alex for a minute.
Oh, Timber. I mean, probably I'd say his best all-round game he's had since he's been back. I think it takes time to come back from an injury such as his, and it must take him a bit of time to get some confidence back in that as well, because you're always going to be in the back of your mind that it's going to go again. But I think since we've seen him, I haven't really seen him have a bad game. And that was before his injury and after his injury. So I think he's got massive, massive levels to go, even over and above how he's been so far. And he's been solid and he's been good on the ball.
Alex?
I actually think our left side yesterday was much better and much more threatening than our right side yesterday. And I think Timber was a huge part of that. He played amazing yesterday, both defensively and offensively. He got forward on a couple of occasions, came close, pretty close in the first half, had his shot blocked, and yeah, I think he just had Brennan Johnson in his pocket for the whole game. Um, and yeah, he's so solid defensively, and we've missed that, especially last season where we got exploited on a couple of occasions with Zinchenko, and I think he's just a massive upgrade. Um, and it's weird to think we've even got Calafiore coming back as well. So it's going to be a real battle for who's gonna
Which,
who's gonna
which is which is absolutely
Interest-
brilliant, isn't it? Go
luxury
on.
is
Ferg,
luxury.
Ferg, let me ask you then, because that and Alex, you've nailed it, mate. I thought Timber was off the scale. I thought he was superb for a lad that's not played many games and just coming back from one of the worst injuries you can get. I thought he was just superb. His confidence, his skill, everything about him. But what does this mean for Calafiore? Is Calafiore the kind of player that's going to be happy sat on a bench? What happens? Where do we fit him in?
Well, we've got Champions League coming up. He can play centre half. He can play left back. He can play right back. So there are places and opportunities for these players. Listen, you just go back to what we said earlier about Trossard and Havertz, the way they played a double pivot number 10. Which I don't know if that normally happens, but they rotated and swapped in the same position. And then when you've got Rice and Odegaard, they play that double pivot number 8. And then you've got, if Rice and Partey go, every player has to be versatile. If you're not, you've got Sterling can go left, right, or in the middle. Jesus can go on both wings and in the middle. Every player, even Martinelli, maybe not as strongest on the right, but he can go there. Every player, I'm expecting one day that they'll actually probably maybe put Raya up top. That seems to be the way that if you want to play for the Arsenal these days, it goes right back to what you said a few minutes ago as well, Trevor. Nyanweri, he's played the same way in the youth team and everybody else who played in the youth squads as the way as the first team. Everybody plays the same game of football and they've all got to rotate. So, yeah, I don't think there'll be an issue with Calafiore because of that, because we will have injuries. We're going to have a lot of games, everything else. Great away record. If we look at the away record, in 11 games, we have 10 wins, 1 draw.
Ridiculous.
That was away to City. We've conceded 3 goals, and I think that was to Spurs and... Was it Spurs and Forest, or was it Forest and... It was Spurs and Forest, 3 goals, which we've conceded in 2024. And even if you look at our record at Spurs, we have won more games at White Hart Lane than in the... How many years has it been open? 5 years that it's been open? Than Spurs have won at the Emirates in the near 20 years that the Emirates Stadium was open. They're just shit. Face it, they're just shit.
The game.
Wash your mouth out.
No.
Did
I thought
you
it was being
see
polite, personally. I thought you could have gone a lot worse.
I could have.
the game was over before it even started? Did you see our little mascot in the tunnel before the game, giving it large to the?
I'll tell you what, Alex. If he's still alive, if I'm still alive, right, when he turns 18, I'm buying that boy a beer.
Yeah, I saw his father put up some posts yesterday, and apparently he was angry about the Spurs mascots. They wanted to high five the Arsenal players, and he said, "Oh, you can't get to do that. You should have chosen a better team."
The thing about this £1 billion stadium, where I was originally, was along the long side. I was in block 117 and I was row 2, normally a great seat. But I've been to Everton. They've got pillars and you're in the upper tier and you get restricted view. You can't see the touchline. This is the view that you get from £1 billion stadium when the ball has been played up the other end. Okay, take the guy's hands out of the way, but it is so restrictive. Everyone had to go across. It's just wrong to have those sight lines in that there.
Fergie, Ferg, the bloke's got his arm in the air. I think
No.
you're making a mountain out of a molehill, to be
No,
honest.
no, we all had to lean forward, and everyone around here said, "Bloody hell, £1 billion stadium! You think you'd be able to see?" When I took my camera out, because I don't like to have my camera out normally while a game is playing, I just want to snap just to try and get it because I was going to make it a talking point from here. And then when I saw the photograph come through, I thought, "Well, he's going to do me for that, isn't he?" I'll tell you, a great photograph we did have was myself, Joe, and Lyle after the game.
Fergus, back to the view. Wherever you sit in the toilet bowl, it's never a good view. So what can you expect when you're in a toilet bowl? Would you like to be in the toilet bowl all your life? I wouldn't.
Ferg, listen. Ferg,
Yeah.
I just sent you a picture that I've just remembered on WhatsApp, on your WhatsApp. And I'm changing the subject a bit, but what I remember, it's a lovely story. I met this lad on the tube train yesterday. He just got talking. There was only me and him there. We were on our way to Seven Sisters. And his name's Dan. And it turns out he's John Lucas's nephew, John Lucas's nephew. And he said to me to pass on that his uncle's bit really well. And it's a shame, because when you look at the recognition that 89 team got, they don't mention Lukic very often, do they? And he was a key part of the score in that second goal. He started the move by not hoofing it long. And I was glad to hear as well. So lovely to have a chat with you, Dan, if you're watching. You said you might. And wish your uncle all the best from us guys here at Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Sorry, Ferg, I interjected there. But, at my age and how tired I am, I would never have remembered, mate, to say that.
No, it was absolutely fine. As you know, as we were walking out the stadium afterwards, we got accosted by Talk Sport, and Trevor politely told him to no, really. And the guy went, "Oh, all right, like that. Do you want a word with Talk Sport?" No. And he said, "Oh, actually, no. Tell that Jamie O'Hara to do one." And I actually spoke for a second and just put a clip up, and I don't know if it'll ever appear.
He had to go for the limelight.
I did. Well, actually, you'd all the limelight earlier. You'd all the photographers are going, "Oh, Trevor, show us your left boob. Oh, your right boob. Oh, Trevor. Oh, navel, a bit of navel. Oh, I like that."
You see, what happens with Fergus people is that when you just tell him he's a bit of a knob for talking to TalkSport, he digs deep and tries to find all these things to have a go.
No, it's worked.
Two words come to mind: old and woman.
Trevor,
old
it's worked.
And woman.
So I'm gonna sit back here and just watch these two old people have a go at each other. It's quite fun from back here.
It is actually, yeah.
Especially if you take it.
Should we leave him alone, Alex?
It seriously worked. It seriously worked. I've got news that Jamie O'Hara couldn't show his face around TalkSport Towers. He's actually got a disguise. Look, Jamie O'Hara had to put some glasses on to try and hide his knowledge.
One day his head will fit them glasses. But no,
guys,
just for the record, though, I didn't swear at the TalkSport people.
You didn't. You just growled. No, the guy cracked himself.
He said, "Would you like to have a few words on TalkSport?" And I said, "While ever you've got that Jamie O'Hara going in your studios, you won't get a word out of me. Now do one." And that was it. I didn't swear.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You didn't. You just growled. Yeah. Listen, Thursday night, Atalanta, Trevor and Dan, you're off out to Bergamo. It's how many is it? 1,200 Arsenal fans, Dan?
1,300.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great atmosphere, a great game, first European away in this new format. What changes can we make? How much can we rotate, Dan?
None. Absolutely none. It's the first game of a Champions League new format. Got to start with a win. Got to keep momentum going into City, and you've got to look at our Champions League record last year away from home. It's diabolical, and we need to improve. And that's the next step for us. For me, is away from home in Europe. How do we improve as a team? Because the only game we won last year was away to Seville. We drew with PSV, lost to Lens, lost to Porto, lost to Bayern Munich. So let's set the standard. Let's keep our away from going as it is in the UK and not conceding too many goals. And let's get the win and get, hopefully, for the last couple of games in January, where it's going to get very busy around Christmas time, where we can start to rest and rotate a few people there.
Trevor, surely we have to keep an eye on City. Declan Rice has had a weekend off. Jorginho rested, Rice in. Do you risk Odegaard if he's 50-50 for that game, or 90% for that game, or do we keep him for City?
I think we showed yesterday that we don't need to risk Odegaard until he's totally and fully fit. We don't have players maybe of quite that standard, but we have a manager that's got a system that allows us to play without Odegaard. And yesterday it worked really well. By the way, I'm not calling it the Champions League anymore. I refuse. It is backdoor European Super League, right? That's what it is. It's European Super League. They've got it in through the back door. I think that we City play on Wednesday, don't they? And we've got to play on Thursday and then make a journey to Manchester. So the day does make a difference if you listen to the reasoning made by modern managers and modern players. So backs against the wall a bit. We go, for me, we go on Thursday and we go as strong as we possibly can. And then we regroup after Thursday and see what we've got for Sunday. But Sunday shouldn't even be coming in my mind, Sunday shouldn't even be coming into the thinking. We've got a game to win on Thursday in a very important Super League that we'd like to win.
Alex, if we do fast forward to Sunday, Trevor and Dan have talked about the European one. Would you go for a 4-2-3-1 formation against the City game? AFC always asks in the chat. And a question from me to you is a draw acceptable? Can we have the same performance as we done last year, which was like really, really tight and defensive, and walk away with a draw? Or do we have to give a little bit more and not play as like a posh Stoke?
A posh Stoke. I think coming away with the draw would definitely be acceptable. And I think as long as we win at home, if we get 4 points against City this season, I mean, that would be perfect. So I think a draw would be acceptable. And we know we're not gonna go to City and play like we do when we play at home. We know Arteta likes to take a more pragmatic approach in these tough away games, like we did against Spurs. I think in regards to the lineup and the formation, I think we're going to see something similar to what we saw yesterday, just with Rice coming in for Jorginho probably, and then we'll see if Havertz goes up top, perhaps. But yeah, I think a draw would be acceptable. Of course, we'd all like a win, but speaking of acceptable, I think a draw would be that on Sunday.
Trevor, I'll ask your final thoughts, and I'll go to you, Dan, then as well afterwards on this. A draw, I said, is that acceptable? Arnie and AFC always says it's not. But you talked about last season, the key to trying to challenge and winning the league was the results in the Northwest and getting the maximum points that we can do. But a draw at City wasn't a bad result last year.
No, and it wouldn't be a poor result this year, I don't think, Fergus. By the way, we comfortably won in the Northwest last year and ballsed it up in the Midlands and London, didn't we? So
yeah.
But I was thinking about it before the Spurs game yesterday, and I thought, well, if we'd have drawn or lost to Spurs and then lost at Man City, then that gives us a massive mountain to climb. Possibly even insurmountable, because you're looking at City dropping 5 or 6 points, and you're thinking, where's that going to happen? But we didn't. We won at Tottenham yesterday, so we go to Man City next week, capable of winning a game, very capable of winning a game. But as long as we don't lose, I'll be happy with it. I'll be happy enough with it, mate. I can get the point that people saying we've got to win at Man City, because if we do win at Man City, then that puts the ball back in our court. This early in the season, we shouldn't be having these conversations. But when a team is as good as Man City you have to think that way, whatever time of the season it is. So, go to City and win next week. The ball's back in our court. We're in front and played level games. At the moment, the ball's in their court. So, yeah, in a perfect world, we go and win. Worst case scenario, we get beaten. It's a bit of a struggle, but a draw wouldn't be that bad for me.
Dan, we got 4 points against City last season. People in the chat saying we have to have it. We got 4 points last season, but we dropped points, as Trevor said, in areas where we didn't think we would, like 6 points against Villa and points at Fulham and West Ham. Is it important that we go there and win? You know, I don't.
You drop points against teams throughout the course of the season, right? So I just think that if we're going to go and win the league over and above this City team, which is a fantastic team, we have to take points off them. If you took the Man City games out of the season and said game for game, compare us to City, I still think players on the pitch, they're a better side. So if we're going to win the league, we have to take points off of City. Minimum 4 points like we did last year. But we've seen how close things are last year where we finished 2 points short. And if we'd have won that game at the Etihad instead of drawing it, we would have won the league. So it is fine margins. I do think it makes a difference the fact that it's earlier in the season. I think away games typically get tougher as you get throughout a season rather than starting them. Also, the fact that we've had such a tough start so far, playing Brighton at home, which is not an easy game, going to Villa, going to Spurs, going to City, that's a really, really tough start. You don't get much of a tougher start away from home. So to be in touch and distance with City after that City game and say at least worst case scenario 2 points behind them, I think I would have taken that at the start of the season. So there's also a bit of context to it. But I do think we want to not look back on this game with any regrets at the end of the season.
People talk about last season and our the team and the performance we had, and we ended up coming second, but we were very close to being a side similar to the 91 side, similar to the 2004 side, with some of the stats that we had actually excelled the stats of the Invincibles. So we're not far off. Hey guys, going to Atalanta, please be safe. Enjoy your travels. I don't know how we're going to work out if we're going to have a preview show midweek. It's probably going to be difficult unless you guys want to do it on Wednesday from somewhere in Italy. It could be an option. Let's
no promises.
Yeah,
are you sure you can handle that, Fergus, with me and Trev together after a few beers on the podcast Wednesday?
Fucking hell, Jesus, no.
He forgot about that, didn't he?
Now, Trev, isn't it? To be honest, you're winding Fergus up with a couple of beers would be quite good.
I'll tell you what, Dan, we've got to him tonight because I've never heard him swear so much on this program. Never heard him swear so much. So the pressure is on him. Man. The pressure is absolutely on him. Ferg, just before you move on from the City game, mate, it's a bit of a question. Have you boys seen the playback of the City win against Brentford yet? Have you watched any of it? Because do you know what? That actually gives me a bit of hope, because Brentford should have absolutely gotten something out of that game. Absolutely got something out of that game. And I watched it this morning. It was a bit of an eye-opener, I thought, here we go. If Brentford can push them, then we can do more than push them, So let's hope for the best, eh?
I think you can look at that in two different ways, though, Trev. They've been nicking results. They're a great side and they've been doing well, but they've not played their best football so far this season, but they've still won every game and they're only going to get better. That's the only thing for me. And you look at that Brentford game, they rested, Vardiol didn't start, Rodri didn't start. I think they rested.
Foden's still not really playing, is he?
Not in the team. Like that, they've got so many players that can come into that team and make them better. Is it a good thing? Is it a worry?
They don't need any more players than Haaland at the minute. He scored 9 goals. That's more than any other team in the Premier League.
So I can't find a comment, right? I've been looking, Alex. Someone's commented. I don't know if Ferg got it there. Man City are only Haaland injury
Mafia Don
from being a bang average side. And when you look at it, I wouldn't say bang average. That's an overstatement for me. But definitely much more beatable because they're right at the back of Haaland at the moment, aren't they?
Well, now that they've got rid of who's
Alvarez.
Alvarez, yeah, he was the backup because they were without De Bruyne and they were without Haaland for a large proportion of last season as well, and they still ended up doing it. They do start off. They do start off a little bit slow as well traditionally. And you talk about Brentford needing should have had something out of it. West Ham didn't do too bad against them either. They could have had a
Yeah.
something, a draw or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just before we finish up, there's a couple of questions. One I might park until I'll show it, but I might park it more for like an international break topic. But Jason Cross says yesterday's class was yesterday was a masterclass in tactics by Mikel Arteta. Discuss. Absolutely, Trevor, wasn't it?
I only need 2 words. Absolutely agree with that statement from Jason. Absolutely agree. Best tactical performance I've seen Arteta play.
And it's quite ironic, Dan, that if you go back 2 or 3 years ago, I remember at the start of it's probably 2 seasons ago, where he was making substitutions and he was waiting until 70, 80 minutes. And I was questioning, as much as I wasn't questioning Arteta, I was questioning sometimes the substitutions that he was making and so on. To go in there with the side that he had and to use them in the way he did, it was just shows the maturity that he's become as a manager, and he's got to be wanted right around the globe.
Yeah, I mean, although his options were limited, though, the options he did have yesterday were a better quality than he had a couple of years ago. So, you can say maybe he struggled with a couple of substitutions a couple of years ago to change a game, but when you haven't got much quality to bring off, it's quite difficult to change a game. So, but he is learning. He's learning like the players are. He's still a young manager, and you always see with Arteta, he does learn from every single game. And the game that sticks out for me is the 0-0 against Liverpool in the Cup, where he went to a back five and we kept a clean sheet. And then after those games, you started to see him whenever we were trying to defend the lead, he'd bring on an extra centre half and we go to the 5 at the back. And he near enough sees something in game, sees it works, and then uses it and adds it to his sort of memory for future games. So the more games he manages, the more instances like that he'll have. And yeah, when he gets to 10, 20 years later, it'll be even better.
This question that AFC always has put in, thank you for your questions. He asked the panel, which was your favourite double winning team, 71, 98 or 2002. What I would ask people to do is think about that. And if you want to contact us on Twitter and tell us which one yours is, we will probably have that as a topic or a discussion point in the like international breaks. We've got a couple coming up. I probably guess what your one is, Trevor, but
he's the only one who's old enough to remember all of them, isn't he?
Well, I was born in 71, but I wouldn't have seen it.
There's a thing called YouTube now, young Alex.
Yeah, the old man is telling you.
Well, obviously for me it's 71 because it was my first experience of watching the Arsenal. I was 9 years old, went to my first game in 1970. So obviously for me, it's going to be 71. It was a remarkable achievement. We hadn't won anything. Well, we won the league in 53. We hadn't won anything the league since then, and then we won the first cup in 1970, and that kick-started us for the following season, I believe. And we had a right ding-dong with dirty leads that season, and ended up winning it. We won the league at White Lane in 1971. Ray Kennedy header to win 1-0, and it was a strange sort of game because we had to win or we had to win. But if by 1-0, but if we drew or Tottenham scored, then we wouldn't win the league. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but when Kennedy scored to go 1-0 up, it didn't ease the pressure really because you still knew that if Tottenham scored, it'd be like a loss because we wouldn't have won the league. So yeah, it was a fantastic season and my first memories. So I've got every program from that 70-71 season, apart from a couple of the European aways, which are like rare as hen's teeth and they cost an absolute fortune if you find one. I'll never own those. But I've got every home and away program from that season, 1971, and brilliant. That's not taken away from the others that these youngsters can remember, but for me, it was the first one.
But we're going to close. But Jack, take a look back at the show. You'll see what we talked about the City game. Do what AFC Gooner, AFC always has done. Subscribe to the channel. There's also 96 of you on Twitter having a look. Jump across over to YouTube. Click on subscribe. We're here every Monday night, 7 o'clock, and we try and get in a midweek one. Before we go, hang on. Before we go, I'll be back in a second. We got to play this from White Hart Lane. That doesn't give it any justice, does it?
Oh,
gave me a flashback.
They turned up the speakers, didn't they? After the final whistle had
Yeah,
gone
they did.
to drown out the celebrations.
Trevor, you want to say something before we go?
Yeah, I just want to talk about Thursday. With really, I liven up a bit tomorrow. Dan, you're flying tomorrow, aren't you, mate?
I am tomorrow night.
I'm off. I'm going on Wednesday morning. But are you on the same flight back as me? Because I get back into Stansted at about 5 o'clock on Friday night, and then I'm getting straight on a train to Manchester.
We're just talking ourselves.
I'm not even coming home. I'm going straight to Manchester from Stansted on Friday night. God knows
how
I'm going to do it.
Fergus just jealous because he's not allowed to go to the game. So when you're under the thumb, and you're not
listen. The last time we flew into Milan, we flew up to we drove up to St. Gallen, and we are probably going to get nicked for this again, and it's going to be blocked and taken off. But we're going to play the tune.
From the Cali to the cross and every shithole in between. Past the church, the mosque, the crack den, and the offie on the corner. See the brasses from the brothel, pretends to be a sauna. Watch the bedlam in the bookies, see the winners and the losers seeking solace from their sorrow. In the local
Trevor's driving. I have my life in my hands.
Oh, you're nagging in me here.
Every day and fuckers causing trouble for the cause make you smile. You're meeting muckers for a couple, forget your troubles for a while. From the fall to the heaven, all the faces are the same. Cause the manner might be changing, but the people still remain.
Here we go, boys.
North London forever, whatever the weather. These streets are our own, and my heart will leave you never. My blood will forever run through the storm.
We had the choice of that at Catherine Jenkins. I'm glad we went for Lewis Dunford. That's all I can say.
a long drive, a wonderful drive through Switzerland, only ruined by Fergus's old woman nagging in your ear for about 250 miles. But I just shut my ears and
you don't have me on this trip Europe this time.
Ferg, listen. This AFC always has joined us tonight, full of questions. Listen, mate, I've got this question. It's too late in the show to answer it, but come back and join us next week. We'll probably have it as a subject if we're not got too much to talk about, and we'll definitely answer the question then.
Thank you all for watching both on Twitter and on YouTube. As I said, if you do get a chance, jump over and like and subscribe, ring that bell. Alex, thank you. Dan, Trevor. Behave. Yeah, I know what you like. You have been watching Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. We came, we conquered. Fuck you, Spurs.
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.